Welcome, friends, to another Wolff Responds. I want to talk to you about the war or the peace, or the war becoming a peace, or the peace becoming a war, depending on which side of the bed Mr. Trump gets out of on any particular day. No, I know we've all been amazed at the up and down, going around this way and that way, but we shouldn't be. What we should be doing is trying to understand the longer range. So I'm going to call this thing War and Peace, Inconvenient Truths. Here's the context of what's going on. Europe used to be the center of the world's activity, at least in its own mind. There was the spectacular Renaissance after 1,000 years of feudalism, what we call the Dark Ages. Then the light came in and Europe took off. It not only rebirthed itself, but it industrialized, the first part of the world to really do that on a massive scale. Started in England and then spread to the whole world. And as part of the explosion of the power and the wealth of Europe, they took over the whole world. They colonized it. They subordinated Asia, Africa, Latin America to the control of the European countries. Little countries like Britain or Belgium or France or Germany took over whole continents in the rest of the world, or at least they did so in their own mind. But the last 150 years, the ones of our time, have been characterized by an enormous backlash, an enormous refusal to continue the colonial organization of our planet and to replace it with anti-colonialism. One by one, starting with the United States itself, broke away from the old empires, refusing to continue to be subordinated, junior, very junior partners. That's what we've been doing for the last century and a half, ending colonialism. One country after another until there are almost no colonies left. Now we can begin to see how this is the context for Mr. Herky-Jerky President, War and Peace, one right after the other. One of the only places today where colonialism is alive, where it is growing and trying very hard to spread rather than shrinking and disappearing, is Israel. Israel is a paradigm case of settler colonialism. A bunch of people from Europe decide to settle in an area that isn't in Europe. The way people settled the United States or South Africa or New Zealand or Australia, and I could go on. Settler colonialism is what it is. And that's what Israel is. So right off the bat, Israel is an attempt to do something against the overwhelming direction of human history for the last century and a half, which is to end colonialism, to give these parts of the world back to the people who were subordinated by the Europeans. And in Israel, that would be the Palestinians. Israel, however, doesn't want that. No surprise there. Israel wants to stay. Israel wants to grow. And Israel therefore proceeded to do two crucial things in its history, neither of which it had to do, but it chose to do so. Not everybody agreed, but it was what the majority seemed to want. Number one, decide that to protect itself, its best option was to go military, terrorize the countries around, bomb, kill the Palestinians when they got in the way, the Lebanese if they did, and so on. The second thing they did was hitch their survival to the biggest, most powerful military in the world, that of the United States. So that's what we have. We have a project to enhance settler colonialism against the flow of history, and to do so with an emphasis on military activity backed up by the United States. And for many years, half a century, this succeeded. But like all other efforts to sustain this kind of a project, this one reached its limits. It's understandable that the Israelis do what they do in Gaza. It's not moral. It's not decent. It is what it is. But you have to kill everybody to make that kind of plan work. We did that in the United States. We did that in Australia, or nearly so. Israel is sadly not in a position to do that, because the people it's doing it to are Arabs, and they have their Arabic brothers and sisters in many countries all around Israel. That's a problem. And they are part of the larger Muslim world, and that's an even bigger problem. For a while, they could do it. For a while, they had the Arab countries so afraid of the military might of Israel, and by implication, the risk of angering the patron state of the United States, that they could not summon neither the military strength nor the unity of the Arab community or the Muslim community to do what had to be done to end settler colonialism. They didn't do it. They couldn't do it. Oh, they tried here and there, but they were defeated. And the Israelis began to get an outsized view of their own capacity. We'll come back to that in a moment. But you know, sooner or later, the sheer magnitude of the size of Israel, a country of maybe 12 or 14 million people, half of whom are European Jewish people who moved there, and the other half are the Palestinians who are still there and haven't gone to other Arabic countries, which many have. But that's a very small country. It could fight well against Lebanon, that's a small country. Syria, that's another small country. Even Egypt, which is bigger, but very poor. But sooner or later, it risked bumping up against a big country, a powerful country, perhaps a non-Arabic country that wasn't caught up in the long list of failures of the Arab nations to act in concert to deal with Israel. And that's what now has happened. The Israelis decided that the best way to get the United States involved more closely with them, to give them more protection, would be by attacking an enemy of the United States, Iran, and hopefully managing it such that the United States would come in to backstop Israel in Iran. And that's more or less what happened. Israel attacked Iran a couple of weeks ago and did so in a forceful way. Iran responded. That didn't go the way Israel wanted, so Israel upped the ante, attacked more, got the whole world anxious about nuclear weapons. And so we had the decision by Mr. Trump to support the Israelis by dropping bombs on the 3 nuclear areas inside Iran that they knew of. But history isn't turned around by any such a thing. History has its own momentum, and not the United States and not Israel have anything like the power needed to undo that. Iran simply presented itself, a country of 90 million people, is going to have a war with a country of 7 million European Jewish displaced persons. Wow, that's not even close. And Iran has drones, and Iran has rockets. It's not the Palestinians who have none of it. Yeah, Hamas did its thing, but it was a one-day wonder. Very limited, very small, and the Israelis have killed 50 Palestinians for every Israeli that was killed back in October of 2023. When is vengeance enough? Iran is not Palestine. Iran can fight. Iran has the people, the resources, and is a huge country geographically. It can hide, and it has. It can put away its nuclear where you can't find them, which it did. That's why that bombing could not achieve what it set out to do. According to the International Atomic Energy Administration, the refined, enriched uranium had been moved out of Iran in all likelihood before the airplanes ever got there. And the great Israeli defense, the Iron Dome, well, let's see. Tel Aviv is burning. The Israelis could not block the Iranians from doing large damage. And the American naval fleet in the Eastern Mediterranean couldn't do it either. If you take a longer look at a war of attrition, you know, the kind of war we see in Ukraine, it's going to be Iran be the likely winner of that, whatever a victory might look like. And any sober estimate that isn't overwhelmed by patriotic excitement, where you substitute the wish for the reality, knows what I've just said. Yes, Mr. Trump has to try now, having failed in the military effort, which they could see in the very day or two. They better backpedal and get out of there, because they are, as they are in the Ukraine, on a losing side. Even more than the Ukraine, this is history teaching us what it means when you have centuries of anti-colonialism on your side. Iran has all of that. And what that means today, and no one should forget it, is that Iran has Russia, and Iran has China, and Iran has the BRICS. And are you going to take them all on? Not only will that mean that Mr. Trump can kiss the Nobel Peace Prize goodbye, it means that if you don't sit down and work something out with the people you declare to be your enemy, you are going to either destroy the whole world or lose a long, bloody battle. And why in the world would you choose either of those? You see herky-jerky behavior by Mr. Trump, bomb him one day, propose peace the next day, demand a ceasefire, get angry at the people who don't observe the ceasefire. Stop. This is the herky-jerky symptom of people trying to go against history and discovering that they cannot do it. Sit down, Mr. Trump. Work it out with Mr. Putin and Xi Jinping and the other major players in the world. Stop imagining you can hold back the process of a historical transformation that you ought to hark back to as the noble beginning of the United States, rather than dishonoring by changing sides to hold back in the rest of the world what those American colonists did in 1776. If interventions like this strike you as useful, please share this video with others, friends, neighbors, co-workers. And of course, you know that they cost money. And if you can contribute, we are a voice for peace, for a peaceful resolution of differences, not a war that kills and maims and embitters for decades people who have to learn sooner or later to live together. Join us. It's worth it. Thank you. Welcome, friends, to another Wolff Responds. I want to talk to you today about the big, beautiful bill that's actually quite ugly. The one just passed by the Senate and on its way, as I'm making this recording, back to the House for a reconciliation, as they call it. So it's now time to do that because the vast majority of what's going to be in the bill is in it now, whatever little tweaks they make before it's finalized. And I want to deal with something that other treatments of all of this haggling and horse trading and what passes for politics and is really just a variety of corruption in which the White House buys off whatever senator needs to be bought off with whatever little trinket, so they vote for a bill that is horrible for the people of the United States. So let me begin with that. What's the problem here that others aren't talking about? Very simple. The single most important problem of the American economy that everyone really knows is the fact that we are now one of the most unequal economies in the world. At the end of World War II, the United States was remarkable because it was less unequal than, for example, countries in Western Europe. Now we are more unequal than the countries in Western Europe. We have really raced to the fore to be as unequal as we possibly could. Over the last 40 years, to be crystal clear, we have had a redistribution of wealth in the United States. Not the one that Republicans and Democrats worry we might have and have to avoid. No, I'm not talking about that fantastic one which never happened. I'm talking about the real one that happened that we don't discuss, although we should, which is a redistribution upward, taking from the bottom, taking from the middle, and giving it to the richest people among us. Let me give you the statistics today, how unequal we are, and then go back and show you how and why the big, beautiful bill is really ugly. All right, I'm going to start with the bottom half of the American people. The bottom half. We are a country of 330 million, so I am talking about 165 million Americans, half our people. Together, the bottom half have today 2.5% of the wealth in this country. That's what they own. 50% of the people have to get along by sharing 2.5% of the wealth. Try to get your head around that, and you will understand what it means when people tell you that half of Americans are poor, because that's the truth. Not the make-believe, not the fakery, the truth. Now let's take the next 40% of the people. They're richer, they have more than the bottom half, but less than the top 10%. So we've talked about the bottom half, 50%. Now the next 40%, what you might call the middle of the United States. How much wealth do the middle of the United States enjoy? 30%. Notice, less than their share of the population. If the bottom half get only 2.5%, and the middle, so we're now talking about the 90% of our people out of 330 million, they get 30%. That leaves the remaining amount, 2/3 of the income of this country is in the hands of the top 10% of our people. That is extremely unequal. You could never dream of a democracy, one person, one vote, if you take 90% of the people and tell them you live on 1/3 of the income we all together produce, and we give the top 10% the other 2/3. That will make the 10% rich, and the rest of us spectators as to how rich they are. Now, please keep that in your mind when I tell you that the only significant economic act that was passed by and through President Trump's first presidential term was the tax cut of 2017, passed in December of that year. It gave an enormous tax cut to corporations and the rich, precisely the people who needed it least, precisely the people who had enjoyed a rising share of the wealth of this country being redistributed to them out of our hands, out of our wealth. They didn't need it, but Mr. Trump gave it to them anyway. And that's the secret to why we have a second Mr. Trump presidency, because they were so happy with what he did for them in December of 2017 that they brought him back for another term and he just delivered the same tax cut to them again. He extended the one from 2017, and he added a bunch of extra goodies for them. He will, by this bill, which is admitted by the Republicans, those who have half a brain at all, even they understand it, this will make inequality worse, just like his first tax cut for them did. Because we need to go back to really make America great again, would mean to make it as less unequal as it once was, not more unequal as it now is. But Mr. Trump won't tell you that, because he's, as you might have noticed, among the people at the top. And he's loyal to them, not to you necessarily, you who voted him in, but to the people who put him in, and that's different. We are making our society a society of extreme inequality. And history teaches us, if it teaches us anything, that in the long run, as masses of people understand the inequality imposed on them and what it costs them in careers they can't have, in jobs they can't get, in income they can't enjoy, in promotions denied to them, as it becomes clear that that's what an unequal society produces, they will not tolerate it. And then the bad news comes as the people at the top realize that the long-term payoff to taking more than a fair share is you lose it all. It's happened over and over again. And to those who think it can't happen here, watch. It is happening here. It's not sustainable what we are doing in this country. The people at the top, the millionaires who dominate in the Senate and the House, are simply feathering their own nest, imagining it will never come back to haunt them, imagining they can just go on and on. And they have been doing it for a long time. I'll give them that. But they're running out. They can't anymore. It's too extreme. We are watching what happens when that crucial moment is arrived at. The Democratic Party is so corrupted by its donors that it offers no significant opposition. In France, twice in recent years, the government tried to do the kind of step towards inequality we're doing here. And both times, the French people did the same thing. Out into the streets they went. Their left-wing political parties, their progressive parties, their anti-capitalist parties led them into the street and said, this country will not go to that level of inequality. And let me remind you, for those who may not know, in France, the law is once you graduate from high school or college and you take a job, the law requires your employer to give you 5 weeks of fully paid vacation every year. You get that? The next time you hear an American politician say, we're the greatest country, remember what I just told you. Likewise in France, and there are other countries like it. I just know France well, so I'm picking my example. You're covered with health insurance from the day you are born to the day you die. Anything that happens to you, the government covers the cost of your medical care. It's a right you have as a citizen. Doesn't depend on whether you have a job or what job you have or what your employer is or isn't willing to give you as medical coverage. None of that. It's your right, and you get it as a matter of right. I'm a college teacher. In France, colleges are free. That's right, no tuition, no fees. You pay your room and board, but you are not required to pay. So you don't build up a big load of debt to get through school. That's all burdensome because we're not allowing that. We want a society in which the rich pay a big share of their wealth to have a decent society, and not one that's falling apart because they want to keep the lion's share, as I've just told you, of the society's wealth. The rest of us, we're supposed to produce the wealth in the factories, the offices, and the stores where we live. But we don't get the wealth we produce. We, the people, get 1/3. And the 10% at the top, the boards of directors of the corporations, those people, they take 2/3. We should have the courage and the determination for ourselves, for our brothers and sisters, and for our children, not to let the growing inequality proposed by Mr. Trump, now rammed true by Mr. Trump, simply to continue. It is taking us in a direction none of us will want to see the last steps of. If presentations like this strike you as valuable, as part of the national conversation, or what should be the national conversation, then please share this video with your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, your family. That's why we produce them. And of course, we have real expenses in doing it. And if you can help us in that way, please go to the websites that we maintain and donate. It will be a very important step you can take to push back against the kinds of development we've just here discussed. Thank you.